Senator Fitzwater's Bill 892. How many people want to do that? Okay, how many in favor of it? Against? Okay, and how about Senator Black's 805? How many people want to testify on that bill? Okay. I don't normally do this. I'm going to ask the lobbyists particularly to keep your testimony as short as possible, because you guys are in the building a lot and you can make up for that. The people that came from their homes, I really don't like to short circuit you because you come down here, but the amount of time we have today, I'm going to have to hold everybody to 3 minutes. If you could make your testimony 3 minutes or less, and a lot of it will be repeated. So if you could modify it so you don't repeat what's been said, that'd be great too. I don't like to do that, but we've got a certain amount of time today. We've got a lot of stuff to get through, so I'd appreciate that very much. Michelle, will you call the roll, please?
Senator Cierpiot.
Here.
Fitzwater. Bean. Bernsketter. Here. Esslinger. May. Here. McCreary. Here. Mosley. Here. Rowden. Thompson Rader.
Present.
Trent.
Our quorum's present. Before we start the hearing on the bills, since everybody's here, I think I'll go to an executive session. I move that we go into executive session. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We are in executive session. Where is my... $855. So I move that we bring Senate Bill 855 before the committee. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor, please say aye. The opposition, the opposed, please say no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Senate Bill 855 is before the committee. Senate Bill 855 was one that Senator O'Loughlin offered a week or two ago. It's the one about net metering for the most part. It's about putting safety requirements and other things on people providing solar, and I think we had a pretty good discussion on that. There is no sub on this bill. It's what we had the hearing on initially. Is there any discussion? Senator Holly Rader.
I would just like to say I know that they are still working out some kinks. I'm going to vote for it to come out of committee, but I'm not committing to a vote on the floor this time.
Appreciate that. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then I move that we do pass Senate Bill 855. Do I have a second? Would you please call the roll?
Senator Cierpiot.
Aye.
Fitzwater. Bean. Bernsketter. Esslinger. May. McCreary. Mosley. Rowden. Thompson Rader. Trent.
By a vote of 7-2, we have voted to pass Senate Bill 855. I now move that we bring House Bill 2057 before the committee. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We have House Bill 2057 before the committee. If you remember, this is the House version of the video streaming service fee. We passed out Senator Rader's Bill 947 a few weeks ago. Is there any discussion on this bill? Seeing none, I move that we do pass House Bill 2057. Do I have a second? Did we get a second? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm sorry, Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Senator Cierpiot.
Aye.
Fitzwater. Bean. Aye. Bernsketter. No. Esslinger. May.
No, we don't. That's on Brown still, okay. Who do we have?
Yes.
Okay.
McCreary? Mosley? Rowden? Thompson Raider?
Yes.
Trent? 7-3.
By a vote of 7-3, we have voted do pass. Senate Committee Substitute, I'm sorry, House Bill 2057. I now move that we bring Senate Committee Substitute for Senate Bill 1018 before the committee. Do I have a second? Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Senate Bill 1018 is before the committee. Senate Bill 1018, we do have a Senate Committee substitute that was distributed. This bill is about the reimbursement for moving utilities when non-investor-owned utility is moving utilities, mostly cable companies, that they get reimbursed for those costs of moving those utilities. There's a substitute out. The substitute, as we talked about at the committee hearing last week, sometimes the people that own the facilities are not those cable companies. It's that middle mile, and so this substitute includes those two. Also was changed to match, except for that part, the bill in the House. So any discussion on that? Pardon me? I'm sorry? This was Brown, Senator Brown. Any further discussion? Seeing none, then I move that we adopt Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1018. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We have adopted the substitute. Any further discussion on that? Okay, I now move that we do pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1018. Do I have a second? I'm sorry, Michelle, would you call it? I keep doing that.
Senator Cierpiot?
Aye.
Fitzwater? Bean? Bernsketter? Esslinger? May? McCreary? Mosley? Rowden? Thompson Raider? Trent?
By a vote of 9-1, we have voted do pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1018. I now move that we bring, this is the last one, Senate Bill 1280 before the committee. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Senate Bill 1280 is before the committee. This is also one that has a substitute that was distributed. This is the bill that I presented a week ago about the future test year for rate cases. What did we do on the Senate committee side? Just got further defining language.
We just took everything out.
That's right. If you remember last week when we talked, we presented the Senate committee sub because we took out everything except the future test year. There was quite a bit of other stuff in there, so all that's left is the future test year. Any discussion on that bill? Seeing none. Then I move that we adopt the Senate committee substitute for Senate Bill 1280. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We have adopted the Senate Committee sub for Senate Bill 1280. Any further discussion on that bill? Okay, then I move that we do pass Senate Committee sub for Senate Bill 1280. Michelle, will you please call the roll?
Senator Cierpiot?
Aye.
Fitzwater? Bean? Bernsketter? Esslinger? May? McCreary? Mosley? Rowden? Thompson Raider? Trent? Okay.
By your vote of 8-3, we have voted do pass Senate Committee substitute for Senate Bill 1280. I move that we leave executive session. Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? We are out of executive session. All right, now we'll go to the regular hearing. Thanks for putting up with that, folks. The least contentious bill I'm doing today, where'd my schedule go? Contentious. That may be true also. Is my bill of 1470. So I think I'll present that first. So anybody in the room, we have some people outside. They leave so other folks can come in. So Senator Fitzwater, if you'd.
Senator Cierpiot, proceed when you're ready on Senate Bill 1470.
Good morning, committee, Mr. Chairman, members. Mike Cierpiot for the 8th Senate District in Jackson County. For the record, I'm presenting Senate Bill 1470. This bill deals with gas safety. Pardon? Yeah, it is. Can you hear me? I can't get any. This bill deals with gas safety. We've heard this bill in committee for several years now. The language aligns Missouri's civil penalties with federal penalty limits for violations of pipeline safety regulations, strengthening Missouri's pipeline safety program. Safety incidents involving natural gas pipelines occur every year in the U.S. Some result in serious injuries and death. The ability to impose penalties as an enforcement tool helps to ensure the operators comply with the safety requirements. Currently in Missouri, the maximum civil penalties are the lowest in the nation. If adopted, the state would have additional access to additional funding for monitoring, investigating, and enforcing pipeline safety. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the sponsor?
You said that
Sarah,
there's additional money to support those, is that federal money?
Yes, it is. It's not a lot. It's $20,000, $30,000.
Okay, thanks.
Further discussion or questions? Senator McCurry, go ahead.
I was wondering if there were specific situations that spurred you to file this bill? Like, is it anything specific happening?
We filed it several years now.
Okay.
It's just that the federal money's there and this is compliance, and it's something that, if you look at the old language, there's a lot of different components to this. This makes it much simpler. We're just going to copy the federal guidelines. But I think that's what's motivating. The bureaucracy sees the additional funds, and it's a pretty easy.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Further questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, first witness in support, please come forward. Make sure you fill out a witness form for our records and proceed when you're ready. Please also, there's a lot of witnesses today, so if you can keep it short, that'd be really helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Rich Germinder on behalf of the Missouri Public Service Commission. Apologize, it's been a couple years since I've testified, but glad to be back here in front of the committee. The Missouri Pipeline Safety Authority at the Public Service Commission is a delegated authority from the U.S. Department of Transportation through the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, called PHMSA. We are required to have a civil penalty provision that is as adequate or as reflective as the federal provisions. The federal provisions offer a penalty provision of $200,000 per individual day of an incident, and an aggregate, I think the current estimate is currently $2.6 million. Missouri currently has a number that is 10 times less than that. We passed the original pipeline safety language in 2008 when I was here as a Senate staffer. That initial language in existing statute has an escalating clause in it. However, that escalating clause has not kept pace with the federal requirements. We are subject to losing our delegated authority or losing our ability to work with our gas pipeline companies in Missouri and provide those inspections and enforcement if we do not have penalty provisions that are as adequate as the federal level. Additionally, we receive, as was referenced, we receive grant funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation to help operate this program. Current estimate is that grant is around $600,000.
Questions for the witness? Senator May, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you answered my question because I was trying to figure out what was the variation between the feds and the state, and you said it was much less. And so basically we're trying to create parity here. Is that what you're telling me?
Correct.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none. Next to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1470.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Larry Poyce with Spire, Missouri Natural Gas. I've probably spent 20 years testifying against this bill. So the question to be asked is, why are we in favor of it now? And that is because PHMSA, the federal enforcement agency, has threatened to take over enforcement if there is an issue. And I want to remind you that there never has been an issue with gas pipeline safety enforcement or penalty. But we would much rather deal with our local state Public Service Commission gas safety folks. We have a good relationship with them versus having to deal with the federal enforcement on this end. There are not a lot of dollars at stake from the perspective of the drawdown, but this recent change has kind of changed our mind about how we want to deal with this, and we would prefer to stay dealing with our local Missouri folks.
Questions
Happy to answer any questions.
for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Anybody else here to testify in favor of the bill? Anybody here to testify in opposition to the bill? Proceed. Come on forward. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate, and I am opposed to Senate Bill 1476. I feel that there need to be standards, there needs to be promulgated rules and regulations, both at the federal standard and the state standard. And for those reasons, I oppose this Senate Bill 1476.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 1470? Anybody here for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator, any closing remarks?
Thank you.
That'll conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 1470.
Next, we'll hear Senate Bill 805. Is Senator Black in the room? I don't see him. Senator Fitzwater, are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's stuck somewhere. Travis Fitzwater, State Senate District 10. I'm going to try to keep my testimony or my explanation really short because I have a lot of constituents who are passionate about this issue, and I want to give them as much time as they feel they need to let you know how it's going in Callaway County and other counties. But the genesis of this bill is the fact that thousands of acres of cropland in Callaway County has been leased out for solar farms. And we want to give some regulatory framework for our commission locally and for the state commission, for commissions across the state to think through how these solar farms ought to be instituted. These are massive facilities. Mr. Chair, I know you're working on a similar issue with a landfill in your own area. It's a similar idea. Is how do we give local authorities some say in these massive projects? And this bill will do that by giving county commissions some ability to sign off on these projects or not. They'd also have some regulations in there that I think are appropriate as far as how close can they be to schools, homes, facilities. How do you manage any damage that's done to these, and how do you think through that? And then how do you tax these going forward? Because we have no really tax bases. A couple of years ago, I was very involved as a House member in the windmill taxation bill. This is kind of built off of that. I know there's a lot of discussion. They're very different products. There's a lot of discussion on how that should look, and more than willing to think through what's the best and most appropriate way to go about taxing these facilities. But this is becoming very prevalent, especially in my district, where 3 different projects, massive projects that I know of, and several more. Ameren, I know, is considering one at their huge property. But these are projects. One that was proposed was going to wrap a city, New Bloomfield, and was going to wrap homes and be on the back side of a school. There's just some real concerns about that, and so we wanted to have a discussion on how that would look, and I wanted to go to bat for my constituents who are passionate about figuring out how do we do this right. We also obviously support our farmers' property rights. How do you do that appropriately while also ensuring that their neighbors' properties aren't the values of their properties aren't damaged in the process? And so that's That's what we're up against here. And so I think it's worth the conversation, and glad to take any questions. If not, I'd love for some of my folks to come up here and have their say.
Questions for this, for Senator Fitzwater? Thank you. Again, how many people want to speak in favor? How many in opposition? Okay, first in favor, please come forward. And again, we're going to ask you to keep your testimony to 3 minutes or less if you could. I wonder what my alarm is. And make sure you leave a witness form at the table. Okay, and let us know who you are. Okay, thank you.
My name is Kyle Carroll, a presiding, presiding commissioner in DeKalb County, and I'll get my form up here before.
Okay.
I'll just be brief. I'm here in favor of this bill. We have had the experience in our part of the world that when wind turbines came in and there was no taxation in place, it resulted in counties in lawsuits and lots of problems. This bill would be very helpful to counties down the road that are going to be facing these similar. Primarily, I'm here in support of this bill because of the taxation. I think it's the most fair taxation of any of the other bills that I've seen. And that kind of a guideline or sideboard would be very helpful to counties down the road. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but primarily I'm here.
Okay. Well, I have one question. I know that the Supreme Court ruling 2, 3, 4 years ago threw all this kind of up in the air. So since then, I understand each county's assessor has the ability now to assess solar projects and generate tax revenue off them. Has your county done that yet? Has your assessor valued them?
Well, we don't have any solar projects in the county yet.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
What I like about the bill is the taxation is similar in what is done for wind, and I think
Right.
that's fair. I think it's good for both the renewable energy industry and for counties because now we have rules to go by.
Right.
You don't have this free-for-all in every county. And if you don't have some kind of guidelines, I know like there are a couple of counties that are going to really get hurt because all the farmland's being covered up, pasture's going to be too expensive for people to rent and so forth. So I just think the guidelines are helpful.
No, I agree. I think actually this has been an open question, as you can imagine. There's not a lot of agreement on the number, and so I'm in my mind, it's like as the assessors assess, maybe the solar people will once the assessors are doing what they do, maybe they'll come back and say maybe we can figure out a number now, but that hasn't happened. That's why I was curious to see if your county was assessing these solar projects.
Yeah, I can't help you with that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward. I'm sorry, let me do the opposition. I want to alternate each one. Could we have first opposed, please come forward?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jeremy Lefevre. I'm here today on behalf of the Clean Grid Alliance. The Clean Grid Alliance is a group of the largest independent power producers in the country. Our companies are in the business of creating electrons, producing electrons, and then selling them to consumers at a low-cost way to do that. Our companies produce them using nuclear. They do it using oil and dams, and they also use it or produce electrons using wind and solar energy. The bottom line is we want to create energy, electrons, for consumers at the lowest possible way that we can do that. And right now, with the levelized cost of energy, the way to do that, the cheapest way to do that is through solar energy. So I just say that as the demand for solar power and solar energy is a result of consumers wanting low-cost energy, and our companies are in the business of trying to produce that and get that for them. I appreciate we've had a lot of really great discussions. I, too, agree that a statewide system of taxation, a statewide system of regulations to make it consistent across the state so the counties know what to do is a good idea. I think this, our industry, if this were to go forward, this would result in no more solar energy in Missouri, just because it would be so cost prohibitive to produce those electrons and sell them to a consumer that would want to buy them for the price that we can produce them. Just like solar is different than nuclear, is different than oil, is different than gas, it's different than wind. And the inputs that are required to create an electron using wind and that are required using solar are very different. And so while I understand that they're both renewable energies, what goes into and how they should be taxed and how they should be treated are as different as they are for oil and gas and nuclear. And so we would argue that the percentage is a little bit high in this, a lot high, and we would prefer prefer to go to a per megawatt amount, and we look forward to talking with the sponsor and the committee to get us to a place where Missouri, maybe we don't say, we want everything covered in solar panels. Obviously, there are people in this body that don't want that. But get to a place where we respect landowners and their property rights and respect consumers who want these electrons and want this low-cost energy, and also respect the communities that we exist in. Be happy to take questions.
Thank you. I think of that as kind of two things. The standards for the community is one thing, and the taxation is another. I don't know, combining them is a good idea. But I think for this bill, for the senator, I think next year it'll be much more ripe as far as setbacks and community standards, because I think that is coming. I think there's an outcry for people that want something that doesn't look like it does today
It's important
sometimes.
to understand when we talk about setbacks, and setbacks can be fine, but when an independent power producer goes to the RTOs and they say, we need to create 150 megawatts of energy, the RTO holds us to that 150 megawatts. And so if you shrink the amount of land that we're able to put those solar panels on because of buffers, it requires us to expand to additional plots to make those 150 megawatts. And so as we think about that, I just want to be mindful of the unintentional consequences. I don't know if that was my timer or somebody trying to get a hold of
That's my timer, and I don't know where I got that sound, but that's what it is. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for
Yeah, I do.
Jeremy?
Yeah, so
Senator
let
May.
me,
I get that at.
see if I can,
I got it.
try to put this in layman's terms. So basically, in farms are being leased to do solar farms, to create solar farms. And you need a certain amount of land and acreage in order to produce a certain number of megawatts.
That's correct.
And so this bill, I'm trying to see where the amount is. I don't see where the taxation amount is in the bill.
It's 37.5% of the value of the materials to build the solar farm. Is that right?
Okay,
I'm not
what
sure
pa-
what section.
I'm not sure what section it is because I've been going through it trying to find that amount.
Page 5.
It's on page 5?
It's 137, 124.
Okay, I got you. Okay. Oh, yeah, I see it now. Okay. And so you're saying that it will be better to tax it per megawatt than to tax it in this way?
We prefer the per megawatt amount because it's a guaranteed amount. There's no company, no anybody can play with the value of what was input. There's no depreciation schedule for the value of the equipment. It is a guaranteed amount, and it's guaranteed no matter what we produce. That we say every year we are going to give you $2,000 per megawatt into your county, and then the county can then bond off of that amount. They can plan for that amount, and they know that that's going to be in their county coffers going forward. So we feel like it's the best form of doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, in favor of the bill, please come forward. I changed my alarm sound so it'll be more normal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Gary Youngerman, I'm the presiding commissioner of Callaway County, which is a county that, as of now, has in excess of 10,000 acres signed to possibly become solar. I'm here to say that we have a nuclear power plant as well in Callaway County that is run and operated by Ameren, Missouri. That power plant is taxed just like everything else is taxed, and it's been highly beneficial to a school district in my county. I just feel like taxation needs to be fair on what has happened, what's going to happen, potentially happen within my county. There's other school districts that are involved here that I believe could definitely benefit from fair taxation. I'm not looking for anything extra, but I will argue the point that what's going to happen is going to be highly detrimental to my county potentially and to my agricultural community, and we're highly ag currently. Ag is our biggest business in Callaway County, so looking at some of that and what's going to happen 30 years from now with decommissioning and making that property back to what it was is a huge question for me as well. But I am in support of what we're trying to do. I just think that there's some things that possibly need to be addressed within that.
Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in opposition, please come forward. How do you turn this thing? Redo it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Dolan, the Executive Director of MOSIA, Missouri Solar Energy Industries Association. We are predominantly, as you know, 85% solar installers and small solar, but we also have Missouri-based developers with projects in the state. I've been very involved in this issue. I want to thank the chairman for his service on that task force. We're limited by time and complexity, and I totally respect the sponsor and all that he's inherited in his Senate seat with Callaway County. And the thing there, it was really nice to hear the commissioner know the cropland vis-a-vis solar report. I was studying that the other day with moves in the House to put the USDA cropland reports and how much cropland we have versus solar. It was really neat because there's 323,000 in the 17 report, probably a little higher, a little lower, and who knows how much solar I was thinking, and here I am, the solar person, or one of them. And so him to point that out is there. If you did the 2% is in the House bills, you'd be at 6,000. So we certainly ganged up on Callaway. That's not the intent. We certainly appreciate the folks that are there. Today, I'd just like to offer my opposition. The Senator's version is as it was last year, so I won't be repetitive. There's other witnesses that can illuminate this much better. But I want to offer the committee the chart that I revised and hit every traffic light in town on the way here, which is the multi-state taxation chart. And we put in for Missouri what it was pre-2022. We put in for Missouri what I think my organization thinks would be best, and I echo Jeremy's testimony. And then we have the worst. And unfortunately, it really was a guess to do wind at 37, and commercial on the property, commercial on the real estate, commercial on the generation will devastate solar. You will be the highest in the nation by far, and I didn't notice either party or anyone wanting to do that to consumers or the citizens and be 50th and or 43rd in the nation of the states that have such a mechanism. Most rely on Chapter 100 and pilots. Most are doing a fantastic job adapting, and there are differences in energy, although I agree with fair taxation. But we've been zero. The court case changed everything. We need action, and we don't need this high rate. As to the local concerns, I'll leave that to others, and I certainly understand what you just said, Mr. Chairman, and I just texted it to my boss. So if setbacks and community standards and things are coming, we want to engage positively. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Dolan? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Can we get a copy of this chart?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ike Skelton. I'm the presiding commissioner of Camden County. I am here in general support of this bill. I think there's a couple of things we'd like to maybe work on. There's one issue that there is no reclamation clause or any concerns for that. There's a solar farm that was probably seen in the news that has been completely destroyed by hail. I'm not even sure where that's at, but it doesn't look like they're going to fix that in Texas. Are they going to fix that? If they're not, what are they going to do with that? So there's no reclamation in this bill. If somebody goes bankrupt or what have you, so I think that would be a good addition, maybe a subcommittee, Senate committee substitute or something. You could put an amendment in there. I also believe that on part of this that they've allowed for some incentives still, I believe, enhanced enterprise zones. I would argue that these things are subsidized from the federal government well enough that there's no reason that we should let them have any other tax incentives here in the state of Missouri. And that certainly is the only reason that they may be somewhat competitive, is because of the subsidies that they get from the federal government off the backs of our children and grandchildren. Otherwise, if these were free market systems, I don't believe they'd be competitive at all. So otherwise, I support this bill and believe that county commissioners, I appreciate the local control aspect of this, and support 892 with maybe a couple little changes.
Thank you. What county did you say you're from?
Camden County.
Okay, do you have any solar, commercial solar in service today?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for this witness? Senator May.
Yeah. So just for clarification, you're not for solar energy, renewable energy?
I am for anything that is free market based. If solar energy would be free market based, wind, and could be competitive with other things, fine, do it, but it's not free market.
is it achievable? Can it be free market? I mean, it's just starting. I mean, in the United States, period, we didn't have renewable energy at all. We started focusing on renewable energy. And so
Using
now
wind.
we're at, so now normally you have to get incentives to even get a market started. We weren't even doing wind.
Well, I don't think that markets need to be started by the federal government. I think markets need to be driven by the needs and desires of the people.
They need to
And
be
if the people
incentivized.
need and desire this sort of energy, then they can pay for it however it can be. It's not competitive otherwise in a free market nature.
So what if people didn't know it was available? So don't you think sometimes you have to incentivize?
Well, I think that the way we have communications this day and age, everybody understands what solar is. Solar is used on small scale, and if you want to put one on your home, although those are also being incentivized and subsidized by the federal government and tax credits, that's one thing. But these huge solar farms, there's another issue that's popping up. The federal government, we found out when we were at the National Association of Counties in Washington, D.C., that in Colorado, these solar farms are being deferred. They're giving deference over individuals that have grazing land and whatnot and water rights in Colorado. Because a lot of these solar farms have to be cleaned, so you have to have a lot of water, and they also have to be concerned about fire concerns and rules and regulations of wherever they're being implemented. So in Colorado, the federal government is requiring deference of water rights from farmers to go to these solar panels. So
Are you okay with the? So basically, you're telling me you're okay with tax incentive that's given to the free market.
No.
Because most of them giving huge tax credits every time they come into an area. Every corporation I know get tax incentives. So you're okay with free market tax credit
A
incentives?
free market tax incentive is an oxymoron, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next thank you, sir. Next in opposition, please come forward. By the way, everybody's doing a really good job of keeping my phone quiet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Noel Torpy with the Revon. I just want to highlight a couple things in the bill. On setbacks, the average setbacks are 100 to 200 feet. This is at 1,000 feet, which we find very, somewhat ridiculous how far that setback is. And then I think it's already been highlighted, the tax is extremely high, if not the highest in the country, which would complicate things for an industry in the state of Missouri. And I'm glad the senator from Scott is back. We have a project in Scott County. It's 2,500 acres. It's 340 megawatts. It will power 35,000 households in Missouri. Over the duration of its project, it'll create over $34 million, which $27 million will go to the local schools. This project would never happen if this bill passed. It just wouldn't be capable. There's just no way. And I know a previous witness had mentioned decommission. Well, we've already signed a contract with another company. In 35 years, when this lease is up, they will decommission the solar panels, put it back to farmland, and those owners will be able to decide whether or not they continue the solar projects or whatever else they end up wanting to do, whether it's farmland, solar, wind, whichever they want to do. But after the lease is up, it will be decommissioned. And so I just wanted to highlight that point that, we just want to be fair here. So I'd be happy to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next in favor, please come forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arnie C. AC Dinoff, State Public Advocate, and I'm in favor of SB 892. I believe in fair taxation to all Missourians. We shouldn't be picking winners and losers, and I believe that public utilities have a responsibility as corporate members of our state to pay back to our communities, especially when it comes to public services, education of our children.
Thank you. Questions for Arnie? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. James Owen. I am the Executive Director of the New Missouri Advocates. I am here testifying in Senate Energy Bill 892. I will be brief. One thing I would say in regards to the tax component, sorry. One thing I would say in regards to the tax component is that we agree solar equipment should be taxed. We believe that should be fair, that should be equitable, that should be going to provide funding for these communities. We do not believe that the numbers that are presented in this bill are fair and equitable to the industry. We are going to continue working with the sponsor, continue working with all other lawmakers who are working on this issue to make sure something is put in place. So we are very much in favor of that. In regards to the other issues involving setbacks and other limitations that this would place on solar, beyond what the county's abilities to enact their own zoning, we would also point out that under the state constitution, there is a right to farm. And part of that right to farm includes the right to produce energy. So any bill that is considered by this committee or by this body or by anyone, either this year or next year, needs to consider that and factor that in. Because there are lots of farmers out there. I'm a farm kid myself. My family owns 750 acres in Webster County, Missouri, that would love to be able to use their property to produce energy. And so we should not be limiting our view of how we address this issue just by landowners who are opposed to it. We would just ask for you to keep those issues in mind. With that, I would submit myself to any questions.
Thank you. So you're saying the right to farm that we passed a few years ago includes the right to produce energy? I hadn't thought about that.
Yes, what it says specifically, Mr. Chair, and I quote it in my testimony, that agriculture, which produces food, energy, health benefits, and security, is the foundation and stabilizing force of Missouri's economy. To protect this vital sector of Missouri's economy, the right of farmers and ranchers to engage in farming and ranching practices shall be forever guaranteed in this state.
Okay. Thank you. I hadn't thought about that. Anybody else have questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hmm? That's in the Constitution. That was a person that was opposed. Next person in favor, please. Come forward. Sorry about that.
Good morning. My name is Kathy South. I am a landowner and a constituent of Senator Fitzwater, and I'm here to speak for the little person that lives in Callaway County, pays taxes, and has been faced with this dilemma for the last 3 years. It actually started 5 years ago, if you want to bring it to the starting point, when during COVID lockdown, large commercial industry came into people's homes, especially elderly people who couldn't get out and get away, and said, we're here to give you a good pot of money for your land. Okay, we're going to let you retire. Meanwhile, they couldn't get out and go to church and tell their friends about it. So fast forward 2 years later, we find out that solar has come to Callaway County, and it came with a vengeance. Immediately we started having county commissioner meetings, started meeting amongst ourselves. So far in New Bloomfield, we have kept NextEra at bay, because what we did is we used the power of our voice and went out to our community and said, please look into this before you do it. It is not what you think it is. And so I am not against solar. I have had solar on my house and when I lived in Colorado. I've got nothing against somebody putting a solar panel or a windmill in their backyard. But there are problems with bringing large solar industrial plants into our farming communities. It degrades our land. I know one gentleman said that, well, we're going to do reparations and we're going to, let them reclaim their land back at the end of the lease. Well, who says that the land is going to be fit to be farmed when they come back? Okay, so I have a husband who's got his PhD in chemistry. My son has his PhD in chemistry. I'm a registered nurse and a teacher. I look to the health risks of this industry, and that's why setbacks are essential. As a taxpayer, I feel very strongly that they should be paying their full share of tax. I don't like them wrapping them around our schools, our churches, our homes. There is such thing as a heat umbrella that comes off those things. And when was the last time we had a hailstorm or a tornado in Missouri? If you don't know, you've got a very short memory, okay? We had it this week, all right? And they are very susceptible due to all the different chemicals in them. And the chemicals will get into our land and get into our water. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And I'll answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for coming down.
Thank you very much.
Next, in opposition, please come forward. Jesus. I guess the X is it.
Chair Committee, my name is Michael Berg. I'm testifying on behalf of the Missouri Sierra Club. Just want to be on the record opposing SB892. We think that the taxation proposed is too high and the conditions are too onerous.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Excellent testimony. Next, in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members, for allowing me to share my story and the importance of Senate Bill 892, which regulates and taxes solar. I'm Charles Gray Crawford. Our family has been in farming for 4 generations, spanning over 100 years. The federal government is pushing and funding solar and wind projects in the rural heartland of America like we've never experienced in modern history, which is removing the most valuable, productive land that has fed this nation and helped sustain rural communities and counties. The tax methodology in this bill for solar is consistent with wind energy, which is still giving them a tax advantage over every other energy sector. This is more than fair, since solar is far more detrimental than wind to these rural communities and counties because the land is totally removed from production for 30 to 40 years. Solar is already receiving 30 to 40% federal subsidies. According to Wisconsin U.S. Representative Tom Tiffany, solar companies can get as much as $50,000 per acre in federal subsidies. We've identified 9,500 acres slated for solar power plants in Callaway County, and we know there's much more. The solar companies don't have to disclose the prime farmland under lease agreements. The solar companies for the past 5+ years have come into our community under a cloak of secrecy, signing leases and requiring landowners to sign non-disclosure agreements. This is why we need public notices and hearings. 7,000 of the 9,500 acres are within 10 miles of our family farm. Our community, as well as I, did not become personally aware of this until 4 years afterwards. The tremendous loss of farm revenue in these communities will be devastating. Row crop farming generates approximately $1 million in gross revenue per 1,000 acres. So the economic impact for the counties will result in loss of jobs, businesses, plus their tax revenue. Will be less seed salesmen, less equipment sales, repairs and parts sales, crop insurance sales, chemicals and fertilizer sales, and the list goes on and on. Some farms co-ops will have to close their doors. If similar market forces occur over the next 20 years as in the past 20 years, the county's future economic loss will rise to 2 to 3 times the present day. That's $2 to $3 million per 1,000 acres these counties will be losing. Solar companies' revenue will not stay in the rural communities or the state, whereas the farm revenue is primarily recirculated throughout the local community. The federal government has waived all development, protections, and regulations involving these
That's okay. Go ahead and wrap it up if you would.
enormous solar power plant projects, such as environmental and economic impact studies. The county commissioner proponent of this bill will allow local officials to tailor policies and protections that best fits their citizens. Finally, the tax revenue will be huge for the community that have lost so much farm revenue due to the massive solar projects, and will hopefully help them from going backwards. It will generate millions of dollars annually that will benefit local schools and services provided by these counties, such as helping equip fire departments to fight solar-type disasters. Let me leave you with this. We are consistently told, and even today we were told, that solar is the most cost-effective and efficient energy source. Then why does solar industry need all the countless federal and state subsidy dollars? Plus, they are demanding favorable tax breaks, which all other energy sectors are able to compete while paying the full commercial tax rate. Should not everyone be on a level playing field, and the best business model and the best business model and best product rise to the top? Senate Bill 892 is very important and needs your support. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next in opposition, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Zach Monroe on behalf of Ameren, Missouri. We're just speaking on two specific points in the bill. The first being the taxation part. We actually support the methodology that is described in the senator's bill. I would say that the depreciation amount is probably a little over double on what we're seeing is the amount that has been negotiated in these deals with counties on Chapter 100s. So we would look at reducing that by about half. And secondly, on the permit part, we own about 6,000 acres surrounding the Callaway nuclear plant, have for 40 years. We're just concerned with a lot of the permitting regulations spelled out in the bill, and would like to see several of those revised specifically to our situation.
Thank you. Any questions, Zach? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in favor, please come forward. Anybody for information? I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Catherine Vogelweide, and I'm in favor of this bill, and thank you, Senator Fitzwater, for introducing it. I distributed a handout to give you that was going to summarize my testimony, but that's not what I came to say today. I want to talk about how renewable energy is working in the real world. If we look at the hype is made that this is inexpensive energy, that it's very cheap for the consumer, that it's going to be wonderful. The problem with it is that it's weather dependent, and it doesn't work all the time. In states that have had high penetrations of renewables, California being a prime example, their cost of electricity is the highest in the United States. It's increased by a factor of 4-fold since the renewable portfolio started increasing in 2017. When you're running on renewables, you have to have a second source. You have to have a source to cover you at night when the sun's not shining. You have to have a source to cover you on days when storms come through and clouds come through and shut down the electricity production. In the real world, it is not inexpensive. It's very costly, and we're sacrificing the land on which we grow our food in order to put in something that has zero chance of working long term. I also want to say one thing to give you fair warning about the consequences of getting Missouri's energy portfolio wrong. For the safety and to ensure the reliability of our electricity supply, we need to have a balanced energy portfolio. There are many options for clean energy that are more efficient, less damaging to the environment, and more cost-effective than renewable wind and solar. Missourians have lived with the Callaway nuclear power plant for decades, and it's a proven generator of consistent, reliable, clean energy. It's one better option for generating clean electricity. It's also very unfortunate that the EPA and the federal government have decided that now is the time to prematurely retire our dependable, dispatchable, fossil-fueled sources of electricity. The outcome that we're careening towards is an intermittent and variable input of electricity supply into the grid because wind and solar are dependent upon prevailing weather. The power purchasing organizations, the co-ops, and Enrgy all warn us that our existing electric grid cannot handle the challenges posed by high penetrations of renewable wind and solar. If we continue down the current path, the grid is going to fail. This will plunge hundreds of thousands to millions of citizens into the dark with devastating consequences. We have only to look at Winter Storm Uri in Texas, Storm Elliott in New York, and the escalation in the number of blackouts across the United States in recent years to verify that these predictions are accurate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in opposition? You're in favor, Ben? I thought we were done with those. Okay, come on up. How many more people want to testify on this bill? All in opposition? Okay, we'll get you.
All right. Good morning. Ben Travis with Missouri Farm Bureau. Per your request, Mr. Chairman, I'll keep this brief and just say that we have member adopted policy that supports this legislation. That would be happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful job, Ben. Good job. Anybody have questions for Ben? Thank you. Next, in opposition? Okay, we'll just go to in favor then. Please come forward if you're in favor. If you're in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members of the committee, hello, my name is Josiah Town. I'm a real estate broker from Henry County. My wife and I are raising our 3 sons on a 100-acre farm that we spend everything we have to work for to obtain. We are currently dealing with a solar corporation that is targeting large sections of our county, to the tune of 20,000 acres potentially by the time they're done with all the wind and solar that they are pushing for. I strongly support Senate Bill 892 to give needed protections against these unaccountable solar companies. They have actually lied directly to the people of our county in open meetings on multiple levels, and will do whatever they need to just to make money at the expense of our county. There has to be accountability and provisions in place to protect the people and the farmland of our state. Property values will go down, and I know this as a real estate broker. People are already trying to flee that area before the project has even begun. The property values will go down drastically around the solar compound, and the quality of life for residents will be decreasing, as well as wildlife and habitat massively impacted. People do not want to live around this stuff. Even the people promoting it publicly say that they would not want to live around it. We cannot allow our state to be overrun by Chinese-made solar panels from Biden's Green New Deal agenda. We all know the so-called energy production is weak, reckless, and would not even be able to happen if it is not for the federal funding that is pushing it. Please keep China and the federal government off of our farmland. We must give these counties a chance to protect themselves from this massive land grab. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in favor of the bill, please come forward. I think I've got the hang of this.
Good morning. I am Cassie Cook from Davis Township in Henry County, and my husband and I raise cattle in Henry County, and we both serve on local boards in our community. I am president of the Davis R12 School Board, and my husband serves on the Davis Township Board. In the past few months, it's come to our attention that several solar panel leases have been signed by our neighbors and our friends. I oppose the installation of solar panels because I believe the ground should remain in an agricultural state for producing food in the form of grains and livestock. But I'm here today to share with you my support with Senate Bill number 892, because if solar farms are in our future, we need some laws like this one. I believe there should be an application made to construct a solar farm. Permits should require construction to be at least 1,000 feet from our schools or churches, and that there should be a public meeting to inform our communities of such projects and give the county commission the ability to accept, modify, or deny these permits. In addition, I believe this bill does have a favorable structure on assessments of projects for tax purposes that will benefit our counties and the residents thereof. Please consider supporting Senate Bill number 892. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Carla? Thank you very much. We're all that's left. Next in favor, please come forward. I'm sorry?
My name's Johnny Walker, DeKalb County, Missouri, in northwest Missouri. I'm going to be real quick here. Let's talk a little bit about solar and the federal subsidies we're talking about here. The manufacturer of solar panels now receive in the form of production tax credits $50,000 per production tax credit per acre. Now remember, this subsidy is based on capacity, not actual output. So it takes about 7 acres to produce of solar panels to produce 1 megawatt of electricity. You're dealing with $350,000 worth of subsidies per megawatt. I can't make it up. Anyway, unfortunately here in Missouri we have storms, hail, tornadoes. If any of these receptor cells are broken on these panels, they go into the ground, and there's a known human carcinogen called candium, which is very harmful to human beings. So any types of industrial or commercial solar farms need to be prohibited because it takes away our precious farmland. We don't have to go very far and look to the west and see where in Kansas, in the state of Kansas, they have seen their electric rates double because they've acquired a taste for intermittent energy like wind and solar, and now their electric rates have doubled. Do you want to see here in Missouri our electric rates double or quadruple? Well, that's what you're going to have. And here in Missouri, if you don't have some forward thinking here, because I know the governor and I know the lieutenant governor and many of the people in the legislative branch here in Jeff City promote businesses to come to Missouri. And I guarantee you one of the things that promotes businesses to come to Missouri is the cost of doing business here in Missouri. So we need to really look at that, so we can't depend on intermittent, non-efficient forms of energy here in Missouri. And that's the point I really want to make. The county commissioners have a right to say what happens in their individual county. It's called home rule. That needs to be in effect here for huge complexes that come into their county, into their individual counties. And we need to say yes to regulations on solar, because remember, we're all in this together. And to all Missourians, our job is to do what? Promote the health, safety, and welfare of our great state. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Anybody else in favor? Please come forward. So is there one more after this? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Susan Burns. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the stuff that has already been said. I've been in this fight with Senator Cierpiot since the task force days. So people are beginning to know my face down here. I think I need to get an apartment close by. I just want to reiterate a couple of things. You've heard that the solar companies talking about what a high tax this is. It's a reasonable tax if you look at the formula. During the task force days, the assessors came and talked to the task force about how they wanted to be assessed. They need to have a level assessment across the state so that there's not 114 counties all assessing something different. The Missouri Supreme Court ruling that solar has to be taxed is what precipitated the legislature to start that task force. And I've been at, I believe, every bill hearing and every task force meeting since that day started. The solar companies say they can't afford this tax. Remember, they're making $50,000 per acre. So, for instance, the Ranger Power solar facility that's proposed in Callaway County, where I come from, is around 5,800 acres. But if you took, say, 5,000 acres times 50,000, they're going to make $500 million. Can they afford to pay a paltry tax? They offered us $625,000 a year as a PILT. That's what they thought was fair. We think what's fair is that they should be taxed like every other company that's coming into Missouri. You know, I'm with the commissioner that talked about the free market. But this is a reasonable tax. It's what wind is paid, and they say, well, oh, you know, they can't afford to pay it. Wind is having no problem paying their 37.5% thanks to the federal subsidies that they're getting. So if they can pay it, the solar should be able to pay it as well. They're making a lot of money. The other thing is the commissioner piece in this. I have talked to more than half of the commissioners in the state. I personally called the county commissioner's office to ask them about their concern. While many of them don't have any solar coming yet, they are all very concerned. They know that they're perching like vultures over their county, getting ready to come. They're waiting for a couple of things. They're waiting for you to set a tax so that they know what they're looking at, and they're waiting to see what happens at the next federal election. Those two things are going to precipitate what happens in Missouri. We should have them pay a reasonable tax. They're making a lot of money. For them to offer us $625,000 per year is not the same when they're making $500 million in profit. If they pass this tax, my assessor says that an estimate of tax that company would pay would be $3 million. They're making $500 million. They're paying us $3 million. That sounds very reasonable to me.
Thank you for your testimony. Thanks for being involved. I appreciate that. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Next person in favor, please come forward.
Dear Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for your time. I want to piggyback off of what the Callaway County Commissioner testimony was about, and I'm going to reiterate a lot of the points already spoken. But my name is Greg Westhuesy, and I'm a local farmer located in Henry County, Missouri. I am here to show my support of Senate Bill 892. If you would ask yourself why an energy industry should not be taxed, as other energy producing facilities are around this great country, even other clean energy from hydroelectric, nuclear, and natural gas pay taxes on their plants. These facilities provide hundreds of jobs to our local communities while paying taxes and working under guidelines put in place by you. Now we have a solar industry that as of right now have no regulations to abide by from the state, and while I would be in favor of a lot more regulations, I am happy to get it started somewhere. You have to take into account that these solar farms have a very negative effect on our neighbors, from dividing family and friends to a very strong argument of depreciated value on personal property to just an overall degradation in the rural way of life that we love and enjoy. There are a couple things that I may not have all the details on regarding this bill, but that I would like to see added. One being that when it comes before the county commissioners, that they not be held liable and that a lawsuit not be brought against them regarding their decision. And the other detail that, if it isn't in there, is that these counties that are township governed, that the county commission not be able to override the vote of or order of a specific township in that county. And I appreciate your time on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions to this witness? Seeing none. I believe that's everybody, right? That will conclude our hearing on Senate Bill 892. Senator Fitzwater, would you like to close with any comments?
Thanks for the time.
Thank you. Next up, we'll hear Senate Bill 805. Senator Black. Senator Black, thanks for your patience.
Thank you for your time. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rusty Black, and I represent the 12th Senate District. Under Senate Bill 805, incumbent utilities will have first rights to build transmission projects requested and approved by their regional transmission authority. For Missouri, that is either MISO or SPP. And originally I was going to go through all those acronyms because I hate that part of this job, but I think everybody in this committee knows what each one of these acronyms are. In addition, electric corporations that seek to build RTO-approved lines shall attempt to co-locate these lines with other infrastructure, which could be on the existing right-of-ways or in partnership with a fellow utility on the utility's right-of-way or directly next to the right-of-ways of various infrastructure, wherever they practically can, which would be reviewed by the PSC during the CCN request. SB805 would require the PSC to adopt rules that would establish standards related to the transmission lines where a CCN is needed that would address landowner communication expectations, structure design and placement, wet weather construction and remediation practices, ag mitigation remediation practices, tree and brush clearing, use and restoration of field entrances and temporary roadways, best practices for erosion prevention. Senate Bill 805, if enacted, would protect property rights and keep control over decisions affecting Missouri, preventing risking cost overruns and delays, and most importantly, encourages working together to protect landowner rights. Additionally, Senate Bill 805 includes the same eminent domain ban on wind and solar as was in Senator Bean's SB 1262 that the Commerce Committee has already passed. And I think most of you have had to listen to me at various times over the last year. When you represent the largest district in the state, 19 counties, 1 senator compared to where some of you live at, and you look at some of the tranches of these electrical transmission lines that are going to move electricity probably from solar and wind to different parts of our country, the northern third of Missouri is going to own the vast majority of those lines cutting across the farm fields where I represent. And that is my number one reason to do this. Let's try to have one set of lines going through the field, not 4 sets in the end of 20 years.
Thank you, Senator. You came from education, right?
Yes.
So acronyms must be your life.
Yes. I had those kind of down after 33 years. These new ones are a problem.
Thank you. Any questions for Senator Black? Seeing none. How many people want to testify in favor of this bill? How many in opposition? It's pretty even. Okay, I'm going to stay with the 3-minute timer, please. First in favor, please come forward. Let us know who you are and leave your witness form.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Tony Clark. I'm a senior advisor at the firm of Wilkinson, Barker, Nauer, and I'm appearing today at the request of our client, Edison Electric Institute, in support of Senate Bill 805. By way of background, I am a former legislator in the state of North Dakota. Later, I served about a dozen years on our Public Service Commission, and from 2012 to 2016, I was a commissioner on the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's all a long way of saying I've worn a number of different hats dealing with these transmission issues over the years, but I do tend to see things from the perspective of a former state official who is charged with overseeing the best interest of the consumers of our state. As complex as utility regulation is, the issue before you today is relatively straightforward. For a certain category of larger transmission lines, there are one of 2 ways that will determine how transmission is constructed within the borders of your state. As the policymaking branch in Missouri, you have the ability to decide which of those 2 paths will be taken. One option is the traditional method of transmission development, in which needed projects are identified by the regional grid operators, and then they are assigned to the Missouri utilities with whom they interconnect. Under this structure, the projects and routes are developed, sited, and built by the companies that are regulated by the state because they are the companies that serve retail customers within the state. And when it comes time to place those rates into, or those lines into service, they'll be done so at rates that are deemed just and reasonable by regulators. Now, if you don't adopt that sort of policy, it will default to a federally driven process. Under this newer federal process, the projects that are identified by grid planners, instead of being assigned to Missouri companies that have franchised to serve retail customers, they're bid out through a process where non-traditional transmission companies, called merchants, can also attempt to be selected to develop the project. This bidding process adds a minimum of a year to the timeline, sometimes much more. Then an out-of-state entity, not jurisdictional to Missouri, selects the developer for you. But here's the key to understanding what I think is one of the big problems from a consumer impact standpoint, is all of that time and bureaucracy that goes into selecting who determines who's going to build the line. Once the winning bidder is selected, they often don't seek to charge customers on what they bid. They seek to charge customers on what it actually costs to build the line at the end of the day. And we're finding that in practice, those lines are costing much more than if you just assign the line to the incumbent utility. They would build it at a regulated rate and place it into service more quickly, on time and on budget. The new bidding policy was promulgated under an order by that was put out by my former agency before I arrived there, called Order 1000. I think the idea that FERC had was that consumer outcomes would be improved through the new bidding process for transmission projects, but however well-intended that is, it has not grown healthy competition, but rather dysfunction for building out the grid. I've listed in my testimony, which I've submitted to you, a number of examples of the problems that have occurred in different states, the cost overruns, the landowner impacts, and things like that. I won't repeat those for you, but I would say that the fortunate thing is, while there's great agreement that Order 1000 bidding processes are not working for the benefit of landowners and consumers, FERC did give states the option to implement things like ROFRs, this right of first refusal, so that the entities that are most accountable to your state citizens are those that have the first opportunity to build them. That harmonizes the coordination of those lines. In practice, it has driven, as I said, projects on time and on budget. If you pass this, it will put Missouri within the majority of Midwestern states that have adopted laws just like this on a bipartisan basis.
So presently, if these companies are bidding, you're saying if it's not the incumbent carrier, it's the people that they bid it, but then the prices are higher than the bid, don't they sign a contract and they're held to that?
Mr. Chairman, so you will hear from some of the merchant project developers that they'll build into those things, those bids, cost containment measures or cost guarantees, things like that. In practice, it doesn't work because there's always change orders, escape clauses, off-ramps, things like that, to protect their interests when
Well, the other party on that is MISO or SPP, right? Are they the ones signing? Who's paying the bill?
Well, Mr. Chairman, ultimately customers
Right,
pay
but
the
I
bill,
mean, who's signing the contract?
Yeah, it is MISO or SPP
Right.
that if you don't have a ROFR, will run through this.
But when they're signing these contracts, they're not babes in the woods. They know what they're doing, and they don't put things in to protect themselves?
So in practice, what we've seen in a successor of mine at FERC, Mark Christie, who's a commissioner there now, is another former state regulator, has pointed out that these cost cap containment measures have proven illusory in practice because, as you suggest, exactly what happens is the developer, after it is put into service, does not put it into service at what the bid was. They put it into service in request from FERC rates that are in excess of that for what it actually costs to bid at the end of the day, or what it actually costs to construct at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you very much. First person in opposition, please come forward. Proceed when you're ready.
My name is Lawrence Willick. I'm Executive Vice President with LS Power in Chesterfield, Missouri. I'd like to thank the Chairman and the committee for the opportunity to speak in opposition to Senate Bill 805, which would prohibit transmission competition in Missouri. I have provided written testimony. Please read it when you have an opportunity. I'd like to just speak at a high level. I'd like to introduce LS Power. We're an independent power and transmission company. Since 1990, we've had an office in St. Louis, and I've been in the St. Louis office since 1996. I'm very proud of our track record. We've won 13 competitive transmission projects around the country. In each case, we had to provide significant cost savings and other benefits in order to be selected. And these projects are from coast to coast: California, Nevada, Texas, Indiana, Delaware, New Jersey, and New York. It represents over $6 billion of investment, and all of these bids and all of this work was done out of our office in Chesterfield. So LS Power's success in competitive transmission means good, high-paying jobs in Missouri. 6 of these projects were placed in operation, all under budget and less than our guaranteed construction cost. All the others are still in permitting or under construction. A little bit, take the previous witnesses' comments a little bit personally. We have never charged any cost overruns to ratepayers. In the case of our New Jersey project, we were selected at a cost cap that was over $400 million less than the least expensive incumbent proposal. And in New York, we had a cost cap that was $200 million less than the independent cost estimate. The savings from competition is real, and it's provided without sacrificing reliability. All of our facilities, we have facilities in the Texas Panhandle. They remained in service during the Storm Uri, and they remained in service during the recent wildfires. We've had an availability of 99.85%, which is twice as good as the industry average. So in the competitive transmission marketplace, incumbent utilities have a lot of natural advantages. So to be successful, we have to identify other benefits through an innovative approach, through cost caps, or through other savings. For our Indiana project, we proposed a rate that's 25% less than the incumbent rate of return, which directly translates into savings for ratepayers. And it's not just new entrants that are providing these benefits, but incumbents are providing consumer protections when they're forced to compete. MISO's had 2 RFPs for transmission projects in Missouri, the Fairport to Denny, and then just yesterday there was a selection report for the Denny to Zachary to Thomas Hill to Maywood. It's a mouthful project. Ameren, Illinois won both of those bids. Just to be, I understand I'm out of time, but Ameren really sharpened their pencil, but they provided a cost less than all the competitors and about half of the estimated project cost. It's a cost that was about 1.6 a mile, 45% less than Ameren just spent in 2011 for the Mark Twain project, which was $2.3 million a mile. And Ameren provided a cost cap on the construction cost. They provided a cap on their equity return, an O&M cost cap, and savings through a partnership with the municipality. None of those savings and none of those consumer protections were provided for the Mark Twain project, and none of those consumer protections would have been provided without an RFP.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for this witness?
So could you, it's interesting to me that in states where there is competition, that Ameren of Illinois can compete when they need to, and actually it sounds like they just won a bid yesterday, or it was announced yesterday. So what would be the impact on customers in the state of Missouri if there is no competition?
If there is no competition, the project would have been assigned to the incumbent Ameren, and they would have built it under cost of service rates, without any sort of cost caps, without a partnership with the municipality.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next, in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Again, I'm Kyle Carroll, presiding commissioner in DeKalb County, and I just want to say briefly that I'm in favor of this bill. I think it's kind of a common sense solution to some of the problems that we have, which I know might be the kiss of death, being a common sense solution. But as commissioners, we deal with those conflicts. And so anything that makes where those lines go more efficient, lessens the opportunity to have to use eminent domain, that kind of thing, and it makes sense to me. So I just want to say I'm supportive.
Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Tim Opitz. For the past decade, I've worked pretty extensively on the regulated side of utility rate making and rate cases. First as a attorney for the commission staff, then I was Chief Deputy Counsel for the Office of Public Counsel, then I was General Counsel for a renewable energy nonprofit, and now I'm here today on behalf of the Midwest Energy Consumers Group, which I represent a coalition of businesses, manufacturers, commercial industrial customers in the state of Missouri. We use billions of kilowatt hours of electricity, employ hundreds or thousands of employees. Today I'm opposing this legislation, and to reduce my testimony here, you know that this is a right of first refusal bill. I have concerns that it eliminates the competitive bid process, and I want to give you some detail about the cost magnitude of eliminating competition. You've heard about MISO. That's just one RTO touching the state of Missouri. They have a long-range transmission planning process where they talk about tranches of investment. The first tranche of investment was approved in July 2022 with an estimated cost of $10.2 billion. Tranche 2 is in the development stages. I think they're accepting comments up until April 5th. So this week, I think it's likely to be approved by their oversight board at MISO in July 2024. That could be as much as $23 billion. Overall, MISO has said through all of these tranches, they're looking to spend up to $100 billion. Now, what is the impact of competition on that? You know, there's two examples I'm sure you're all aware of. One was provided by Ameren Missouri in Kansas. When Kansas was evaluating a ROFR, they said savings could be 25 to 60% under their bid. Another one that you're recently probably aware of was the state of Iowa. Their Supreme Court struck down a ROFR law that was passed last year. And in that decision, the court talks about, well, we're seeing that 15% savings due to competition compared to what the MISO estimate is. So ultimately, whether the savings are $60 billion or $15 billion, ultimately these costs are going to be passed on to customers like the ones I represent who are not inclined to pay higher bills. So I would urge you to keep that in mind and oppose this legislation.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is David McDowell. I'm CEO and General Manager of NW Electric Power Cooperative up in Cameron, Missouri. When practical and economical, it's just common sense to co-locate new transmission lines with existing transmission lines to minimize impacts to local landowners, potentially providing existing landowners additional compensation and to minimize the impact on the environment. Missouri's electric cooperatives have historically and continue to locate new or expanded transmission facilities on existing corridors wherever feasible. This makes economic sense for the cooperatives and minimizes encroachment on existing landowners. Currently, we're discussing the potential for additional co-location of new transmission facilities in northern Missouri. To ensure reliability for our members, we need to build a new 161 kV transmission line for Ameren's Zachary substation just south of Kirksville to our Locust Creek substation just outside Milan, where it will connect to our existing 161 kV transmission system. Additionally, MISO has determined the need for a 345 line from Ameren's Zachary substation that would extend west to a new substation very near our Fairport substation. This would be roughly 100 miles of new transmission line on new line right-of-way. Since we already have transmission corridors from Locust Creek to Fairport, We have discussed the possibility of building a new line and rebuilding our existing lines along our existing corridors as a double-circuit co-located line. The double-circuit line would minimize the impact to landowners and rebuild some of our lines that are now over 50 years old. Our discussions with Ameren have been dependent on them being awarded the MISO bid, which I think they were yesterday. MISO, as I understand it, essentially rejected Ameren's attempt to bid a co-located line that would have allowed for 2/3 of a 100-mile long line to be built in existing right-of-way and co-location of most of the remaining third. If this position stands, it would be building over 30 miles of greenfield line, and another utility, presumably Ameren, will be building over 100 miles of greenfield line on separate paths. A decision this detrimental to Missourians shouldn't be left in the hands of people that don't live here, work here, or farm here. The current MISO bidding process undermines and thwarts any efforts to co-locate. The bidding process and the lack of local participation on the front end of the project ensures that the project will be built at the expense of landowners and the communities they live in, with additional greenfield transmission projects and no cooperation or co-location opportunities. It was mentioned in 2017, Northeast Power co-located a line with Ameren's ATXI Illinois group. Prior to that co-location, there was a significant amount of opposition to that from landowners, the county commission, and other stakeholders. After the co-location agreement was established, much of that opposition went away. This is an example of a successful co-location project that produced the best outcome for both utilities and landowners in the area. Missouri's electric cooperatives exist solely for our members. We are owned by our members. Most of the land these lines cross is owned by our members, and every dime we spend is our members' money.
Thank you.
Those members and all landowners deserve for us to have the ability to make the best use of their money and their land. We should be able to make the decisions that benefit our members the most without interference or limitations imposed by out-of-state entities that don't have our members and landowners' best interests in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That example you used where you said it was a 100-mile line and they had the ability to either use co-located lines or greenfields, who made that decision that they're not going to use the co-located lines? Was that MISO?
On the new lines we're talking about currently?
On the example you quoted there.
My understanding, well, the example is Northeast. That's the Northeast project. Because Ameren had the opposition, Northeast talked to Ameren. They agreed on a co-location. On the new line, my understanding is Ameren didn't accept. MISO didn't accept Ameren's co-location bid. So they forced Ameren to provide a single line bid, which essentially is a 100-mile long greenfield line.
So MISO's the one that said you can't use co-location.
My understanding is yes.
And this would not fix that.
This would, excuse me?
This would not fix that because MISO would still say you can't co-locate. If they were the one that's driving that decision, this would not remedy that.
I'm not an expert in this. My understanding is if we have a co-location or ROFR legislation, that MISO would have to consider that when they put the bids out for consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in opposition, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Neil Chatterjee. I am a senior advisor at Hogan Lovells here on behalf of our client, LS Power. I am also a former chairman and commissioner of the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee, as well as a longtime Senate aide where I worked closely with Senators Blunt and Bond on energy policy for a number of years. So I have deep affection and familiarity with issues of importance to Missouri, and it's an honor to be here with you today. You heard from my friend and colleague, Commissioner Tony Clark, earlier. Commissioner Clark and I tend to agree on most things, but this is an area where we have a different view. You might be wondering why a guy coming here from Washington, D.C. via Kentucky, grew up in Kentucky, so we're practically cousins. Why you guys should care about what my views are. Well, when I served as chairman of FERC, I felt my foremost obligation was our oversight of the reliability and the affordability of the grid, to make sure that when Americans hit the switch, that the lights come on. And when it comes to affordability, I view energy bills as a tax, and I prefer policies that reduce costs and lower taxes. And when it comes to competition, I truly believe that competition drives innovation and cost discipline and lowers costs. As Missouri seeks to grow its economy, you're going to see dramatic increase in demand for electricity and load growth in the coming years, and that is going to require the modernization of the state's electricity transmission infrastructure. This infrastructure is the backbone of the energy system and will facilitate Missouri's economic growth. And I really want to urge the committee to consider the immense benefits that increased competition in Missouri's electricity transmission sector can bring. By fostering a competitive market for transmission development and operation, you can unlock innovation, drive down costs, and enhance grid reliability. ROFR bills like Senate Bill 805 stifle competition by granting existing utilities or incumbent transmission developers the exclusive right to build and operate transmission projects within their service territories. This type of control can deter new market entrants and innovative solutions, limiting the potential for cost savings and technological advancements that competition consistently brings. A couple of previous speakers have cited the fact that Ameren has bid for and won competitive bids. And what that forced them to do was sharpen their pencils and lower costs and ultimately protect ratepayers. And so Missouri ratepayers actually stand to benefit from the competitive bidding process. To prove this point, studies consistently show that competitive transmission projects yield cost savings for consumers as competition fosters efficiency and drives down project costs. Just to conclude my remarks, like I said, look, I believe in markets, I believe in competition. I believe competition forces people to be better, to lower their costs, to be more efficient and effective. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think I've been told that FERC was implementing ROFR and then pulled back from that. Is that?
So FERC is contemplating a transmission planning reform right now. There had been some talk of potentially restoring a federal ROFR. My understanding from talking to my former colleagues and staff at the commission is that they have backed away from that. I am hopeful that FERC, Commissioner Clark mentioned FERC Order 1000. Look, FERC Order 1000 isn't working perfectly. I think we all can agree to that point. I would like to see FERC take steps to improve upon that and actually derive the benefits of competition that were originally envisioned in FERC Order 1000. I think it's indicative of where the commission is right now, that they're moving away from restoration of that federal ROFR because they realize that that is a step backwards at a time when we really need to move forward when it comes to building transmission at the lowest possible cost.
All right, thank you. Questions for this? Senator McCrary.
Thank you for being here. So one of the things I'm struggling with is, we're state legislators. I was very pleased to see the Illinois governor veto ROFR at the end of last year. One of the things that I think is getting lost in this discussion is what state legislators do in other states actually could affect our constituents, whether it's residential ratepayers or businesses. Can you talk a little bit about like that 30,000-foot view? Like I don't want any of the states around us to have ROFR because I think that would keep costs high for ratepayers. So can you talk a little bit about the interplay between states and how we're in these regional, because we're in regional situations where if a state has ROFR and the costs are much higher, that it's going to ultimately impact Missourians.
That's right. When you have these multi-state markets, you want to ensure that you are protecting your own ratepayers, and your ratepayers can be harmed by actions taken in other states. I famously lived through this example during my time at FERC on a slightly different issue regarding subsidies for certain forms of generation. Certain state legislatures were passing bills that were subsidizing their preferred forms of generation, and that was actually harming other states who didn't necessarily support those public policy goals. And so I imposed a policy to kind of restore accurate market signals. Because for these markets to really work effectively, you've got to have, free market access and not have, outside, manipulation from different states. And so that's why I'm a big supporter of competition. And now, while that was a slightly separate issue tied to competitive power markets, I think the analogy does apply here. When you have competition, ratepayers across state lines benefit. And so that's why, I'm very much in favor of fixing issues with Order 1000, getting competition to work. And I'm hopeful that policymakers will embrace these types of things. And thank you for your work on these really kind of wonky, technical, weedy issues, but that are important because they impact ratepayers at the end of the day.
Exactly, and I appreciate that you talked about thinking like utility bills as taxes, because that's how I feel too. You can't get out of paying them. Like in order to live someplace, you have to have basic utilities. So, yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next, in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, Shannon Cooper today representing the Missouri Cattlemen's Association, maybe a little different perspective than we've heard, but our members are the folks that house these lines, deal with these companies coming and going, and I can tell you, while very sensitive issue for our members losing our property for these easements, but we would much rather deal with the incumbent providers. That's why we're here today. We have those relationships with these individuals who live in our community, who we've grown up with. And when there are issues, there is a much different outcome when we get to deal with folks we see in our community every day compared to when we have to deal with people that are never going to come back and see us again. So that's the reason we support this bill. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, in opposition, please come forward.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. My name is Jeremy Cady. I'm the State Director for Americans for Prosperity. We want to go on record in opposition to Senate Bill 805. Last witness in opposition actually went over a lot of the things that I was going to say also, so I'm not going to repeat those. But again, and I want to also say that generally speaking, we're in opposition to the ROFR portion of the bill, very specifically. So there's a lot in that legislation, but I think that needs to be said, that there's a lot in there, but ROFR is the main item that we have opposition to. And again, it deals with the competition, holding companies accountable, ensuring that costs are being drawn down. Research has shown that competition can reduce costs of new transmission projects by 20 to 30%. And again, we also see it as a tax increase also. We've got captured customers that can't get out of they're forced to be a customer of that company. And if those costs are pushed down to them, they have no choice but to pay those. So again, we would urge the committee to oppose Senate Bill 805 and instead prioritize fair, competitive, and consumer-friendly energy markets for the well-being of all of Missouri's economy and residents.
Thank you. Questions for Jeremy? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Next, in favor, please come forward.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. My name is Joseph Welch, and I work for Burns & McDonnell. Burns & McDonnell is an engineering and construction architecture firm that has served in the communities of Missouri for the last 125 years. As a continuing working partner with Ameren, Burns & McDonnell shares many of the same values. We believe in focusing on our customers and providing quality and reliable service to the people of Missouri. Today is more important than ever, as reliable power is a necessity and not a luxury. Through our partnership, we have been intimately involved in all of Ameren's processes, from project origin to project execution, and I'm here today to talk about our experiences working with them and the industry in general. High standards of quality are present throughout Ameren's entire project lifecycle. Beginning with the project selection process and their evaluation of potential projects, Ameren focuses on customer affordability and reliability. Each project is evaluated against alternatives to make sure the best solution is chosen to improve service to their customers. Projects are developed with utilizing a rigorous set of design and equipment standards developed by the engineering teams, with the customer always in mind, focusing on affordability and reliability. These standards also allow for a smoother development phase, during which project scope is defined through things like site visits, scoping meetings with internal and external stakeholders, including local community members, landowners, and elected representatives. This process allows Ameren to drive cost certainty and limit scope creep from increasing project costs during construction. Not only do design standards help drive project risk management and cost control, but they also provide minimum requirements for supplier expectations. They focus on procuring equipment from reputable suppliers and building with quality materials to provide long-term reliability and lowering overall project lifecycle costs. Skip ahead. Personally speaking, Ameren has a major impact on the establishment and growth of Burns McDonnell's St. Louis office. We've been working with Ameren since the 1980s and began working with their transmission and distribution assets in 2009. We quickly developed a partnership that has grown stronger each year. With the support from Ameren, we have been able to grow our group to over 100 employees that live and work in communities across Missouri. In addition to our growth, our partnership with Ameren has allowed us to directly mentor and support over 30 diverse businesses in Missouri, creating a waterfall impact to our communities. Not only are these partnerships critical in maintaining quality and efficiency to project delivery, but these partnerships also create an environment where the team can focus on the safety of the workers and the community. Each person here wants to make it home at night, whether those folks are in the office or on a job site. Safety is the top priority of Burns McDonnell, and Ameren shares this priority and emphasizes safety in the selection of partners and throughout the construction process, creating a culture of safe working environments for those that step onto an Ameren project site. Lastly, Ameren is a local business employing local people and is an active member of the Missouri communities they serve. We mentioned earlier the emphasis that Ameren has on the local businesses, but they also serve the community by supporting local charities. Many of the charities across Missouri have not only benefited from Ameren's financial contribution, but the time its employees have spent in direct engagement, as well as the Ameren employees serving on their leadership. I'm here to support the bill.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Next, in opposition, please come forward. Don't be bashful.
Good morning. John Kaufman on behalf of the Consumers Council of Missouri. I'll be brief. The more transmission lines that we have in our state, the better it is for ratepayers. It gives us access to different markets. It encourages the free market, and it improves reliability, and it definitely leads to lower rates. What will not lead to lower rates is giving exclusive right of first refusal permission to these incumbent monopolies to do no bid contracts, and so for that reason we are opposed to this bill. Also, I have a form from the Missouri industrial energy customers who are also opposed to this legislation.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next, in favor, please come forward.
Good morning. Kara Corches on behalf of the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, also in support. While we do certainly appreciate competition, we also really prioritize job creation and economic growth in the state, and we believe that this bill has significant potential to increase jobs upstream in terms of our utility manufacturing equipment companies, engineering companies, Missouri construction companies, and our Missouri-based utilities as well. We also feel that our Missouri utilities have built good relationships with business landowners who have this land, that they want a point of contact who they know in their community to go to with issues. But primarily, our support is predicated on the potential for job creation and economic growth, which is the fundamental role our organization plays. Happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions for the Chamber? Thank you very much. Next, in opposition, please come forward. How many are left in opposition? Okay.
My name is Michael Berg, representing the Missouri Sierra Club. I'll be very brief. We oppose this bill because it's anti-competitive and would give monopoly utilities more opportunities to interfere with regional planning, and it would make it harder to have grid reliability and be bad for ratepayers.
Thank you. Questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward. Is that? Don't be bashful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Catherine Vogelwide, and I just want to kind of give you the view. I'm a landowner whose land was taken this year for a high voltage transmission line, and just, you know, we had to hire an attorney, we had to spend $1,500 to be represented. We were told if we wanted to go to court to fight for the rights to keep our land, we would have to shell out at least $20,000. We had virtually no chance to get a favorable judgment. The easement that we signed gave the company the rights to the land for perpetuity, for our lifetime, the lifetime of my children, the lifetime of my children's children, and anyone else who ever owns that land in the future. So the acreage that they took from us for the transmission line, we will never have use of that land for our purposes again. And we had no say in whether we would voluntarily give it up. Under eminent domain law in Missouri, it can be taken from us. So I think it's important not to forget. If you look down the road a little bit toward the future, you know, with Biden's goals in line for the green energy transition, we're talking about building out another 240,000 miles of transmission lines in the United States, which is enough to circle the planet 10 times. That land is coming across rural America, and a high percentage of it in rural Missouri. From where I live right now, within 5 miles of my home, there are 2 high voltage transmission lines already, and another one coming across my land probably by next year. So don't forget about the people who are going to be directly impacted by this for the duration of their lifespans and their families' lifespans.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Senator McCray.
Ma'am, I was just wondering, what company were you talking about that took your land?
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't want to specifically name the company because they weren't doing anything wrong. They were doing what the law permits them to do. The law permits them.
So it must have been Ameren then?
Pardon?
I guess it was Ameren?
No.
Okay, but you won't say.
No, because I don't want to slam the company because they didn't, in the process, they didn't do anything bad.
Okay.
They did what the law permits them to do.
Are you up north?
Yes.
Okay.
They did nothing bad.
Okay. Thank you. Next in opposition.
Almost good afternoon, members of the committee. Mr. Chair, my name is James Owen again with Renew Missouri Advocates. I'm here to testify against Senate Bill 805. Just really to add an emphasis on what's already been said, and just also note that the need for transmission is only going to increase, and the need to have access to clean energy is only going to increase, whether people are in favor of that or not. Fortune 500 companies are in favor of it. Large-scale entities like the U.S. military are in favor of it. This is going to have to come from somewhere. Slowing down that process, slowing down the market for transmission lines is only going to make us look in areas that are closer to population centers, like Callaway County, like Henry County. So if we're not getting this clean energy from places where the wind blows the hardest and the sun beams the most it can, we need to make sure that we have as much transmission as possible, and I would open myself up for questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next in favor, please come forward.
I'm Susan Burton. I'm from Callaway County. I'm a private citizen. I live on a century farm where my family's been farming for 140 years. Recently, I became a victim of eminent domain with a big power line coming across my land and actually coming through my yard. So it's within maybe 50 feet of my porch. Anything that will slow down the spider web of transmission that is coming across Missouri and is going to bloom out from all the solar and wind that's going to come into us is going to be an advantage to Missourians. So I am in favor of this bill.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next in opposition. Next in favor, please come forward. Is that all the witnesses? Don't be bashful, guys. Come on. We got to get it. Our time's up in this room.
Thank you, Chairman and committee members. I'm in support of Senate Bill 805, and I agree with the previous testimonies in support of this bill. It is very important to utilize existing right-of-ways and easements for new transmission lines to lessen the overall impact to agricultural communities and landowners. These transmission lines that run across agricultural land, they affect us greatly because we're not allowed to put up irrigation pivot systems. It's more costly. It's not economical, and it also prevents us from using the technology today with flying on by airplanes or helicopters, fungicides and insecticides and fertilizers that is in today's farming a necessity. They restrict that, and it's unsafe for the pilots as well. I'm in support, and I urge you to throw support towards this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being brief. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Thank you. Next in favor, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chase Campbell representing Liberty Utilities, just going on record in support.
Thanks, Chase. Any questions? Seeing none. Anybody else in favor? Anybody for information purposes? Senator Black, do you have any closing comments?
Yes, quickly. I just want, on the Iowa case, I know we shouldn't be debating, but on the Iowa case, that was what we consider a Hammersmith violation, is why that got turned over multi-source. The bills are back in Iowa again. As you can tell, the landowner rights, et cetera, are important, and we need to continue to discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Black. That will conclude the hearing on Senate Bill 805. That will conclude the Commerce hearing. Thank you, everybody. And I promise by next week I'll learn how to use my telephone machine.
It's called a texting machine.
Are we done? Carla?
You don't need to, but if you want to.
Am I taking minutes?